So let's get into it briefly, guys. Okay. The Gordon Hayward situation. I did want to address this before we wrap it up. Jimmy's got dates. He's got ladies. He's got to get. He's got to get going.
COVID's rearing its ugly head. I haven't been on a date in ages.
Well, you're being responsible, Jimmy, and we thank you for it.
But if you're a girl watching, I mean, slide in. I mean, it's all good. But anyways,
it's not what we do here.
There might be a couple. Who knows?
So here's what we got. The reports, and again, this stuff's going to come out. And it's really hard to just, people are going to jump on stuff because it's going to kind of suit their narrative, and it's what people do all the time. So I'm going to avoid doing that. However, the reason I'm more inclined to believe that this might be true is because it actually hurts Danny's case to find out, that if this would be true, that they were about to offer $100 million and the Pacers were too. So, So the reports are Celtics and Pacers each were offering. The numbers have been thrown around north of 100 and up to 110, which is way higher than we thought and not too far off from the 120 he got from Charlotte. And so when you piece it all together again, we're trying to kind of sleuth this together too. You're looking at what? Gordon didn't want to come here. The Celtics offer was what it was. Told him he didn't want to be here. They worked out an extension seemingly to get the Indiana trade done. Feels like Danny kind of held his cards a little bit too long, and Charlotte swooped in. It's possible Gordon always was going to wait and see, but the reason I don't believe it is that 2-day extension never would have been granted. If Gordon wanted to see the market first, he could have just left on Tuesday, opted out. That extension existed simply to complete this deal, to send Gordon away from Boston, which he clearly didn't want if the money was the same, to Indiana for the money that was roughly the same at what Boston was offering. And it appears that the reason behind not doing this is Danny didn't like Miles Turner. So we're back to the is something better than nothing debate here, which we had before. And again, I was firmly in and all of us were, I think, something is better than nothing. Take it, learn to enjoy Miles Turner and move on. And if this is what it came, and again, you're hearing different people say different things. Kevin O'Connor on his podcast was trying to give Danny the benefit of the doubt. He's a bit of I'm not going to call him a homer, but he's sympathetic to the Celtics situation here. He doesn't want to heap on him, but he's saying this just sounds like Danny botched it. I don't know how we're going to walk away from this thinking anything but that. Maybe we do, but I don't know.
This is where Danny clearly fell short, is he didn't get that.
It's a mismanaged situation, it sounds like, and one that, again, I believe that, if this happened to another organization, if we watched a rival organization right now mess something up like this, lose star players year over year, lose assets, get nothing in return, we would be burying them.
Yeah, my take's still the February one. I go back to February and say, do you offload him then, anticipating what could be coming later in terms of a deal, in terms of what you might have to pay for him.
But
they're in a different place.
You would have been the first guy with the pitchforks if Danny Ainge treated Gordon Hayward at the trade deadline.
Well, no, looking at, I'm using some revisionist history there, some retrospective to, anticipate what ultimately happened, and say if you're in that position and have an idea that might happen, that might be the best way to asset manage. Then, because you
could say that with Kyrie too.
You're in a better position. Oh well, I always thought about it with Kyrie. Like, if you really think you're going to lose him at the end of the year, there's a strong case here to move him, because once you get to that place,
I was all in on Kyrie moving.
That made more sense because you knew Kyrie hated it here.
You're in a position of strength when
I
you're
would have
giving a guy
taken
up for half
anything for Kyrie there. Anything. Jimmy, we had this conversation a million times.
The thing is, though, in those spots, you say, oh, maybe they could win. Maybe they can do it. And that's where the Celtics ultimately went with that. Now, right now, I'm firmly in Danny's camp on this. And, you can roll the tape to last week. What were me and Jimmy talking about when we were discussing the Indiana package here? Turner's just, what do people imagine when they think of Turner? Like, I put up pictures of Anthony Davis and just these guys, because I don't know what people were watching all these years, not to mention when he played with Kemba, Tatum, Brown, and Smart on the Team USA team.
Nobody likes Turner, Bobby.
Yeah.
Not people don't love Turner. We were trying to talk ourselves into it because the argument was simply.
You know what we didn't know? That Tristan Thompson was coming around the corner. And I asked you guys in the group chat, would you rather?
This is what drives me nuts. The Celtics had a plan A, and mucked it. Let's not pretend that plan B or C was in fact plan A and possibly even better than plan A. It wasn't. This is not what Danny wanted
Well, let's
to do.
go back to that 1-1. Let's say the package was Doug McDermott, who just kind of stinks. Like, he's a mediocre wing player, and Turner, a fairly mediocre center here. For Tristan Thompson, and this is where we disagree, John. We have two different visions of what Tristan Thompson could be for this team. I think he's a game changer. Jimmy's close in my camp here. But, you know, you
He
have a
was
different vision.
always an option. Bobby, I'm not saying that. I don't disagree that you could trip into this working again, okay? But it wasn't the plan. It's not plan A. They were not prepared to let Gordon walk because I'll cobble it together. They did not want to lose the asset for nothing. That is what happened. And now you're saying, shoulder shrug, we never know, it could work out, but it wasn't the plan, so there's no reason to defend it. It was mismanaged.
You get a question is at what point they figured out that they could go to a Thompson, because don't you think the option was there to eat Nicholas Batum? The option's still there to do something with Charlotte. People are talking about Terry Rozier. I don't think that's possible at this point, but they chose to just let Hayward walk in that situation instead of...
They chose nothing. It was chosen for them.
There was always a chance. Charlotte needed $10 million in relief to do this. Do you think they wanted to just cut Batum and eat $10 million a year there? Like, they could have worked something.
Someone's asking here, is Kemba injured? The answer is yes. That's why we started this stream. A few people jumping in late. We are catching you up. Kemba Walker, not injured, but it's a knee.
Is he hurt or injured? Is he hurt?
We had an update on it. We'll circle back to that later because people are asking. But yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
All right, break the tie here, Jimmy. I mean, where do you see this now? If the Celtics, along the way in these negotiations...
If Jimmy breaks the tie on your side, I'll just bring in more people, Bobby.
If we look back on the situation...
I'm not afraid to go 1-on-5 either. I don't care.
If we look back on the situation and say Danny and Indiana are talking for days and days and days, all of a sudden LA, those two LA teams that possibly could have taken Thompson went in different directions, and the Celtics find out they're the top suitors now for Tristan Thompson if they walk away from this. I think that's a realistic possibility and a good move.
So
I don't even know what we're trying to say anymore.
Plan A's and plan B.
Yeah, it was either or, John. You couldn't.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I just don't think that this is no different than saying Cantor and Kemba was better than Horford and Kyrie.
Oh, you are understating Tristan Thompson so much, and that's where I want to fall into. All I'm saying is
there's no
John's
reason,
point is this.
There's no reason to pretend the thing that you're doing because this is where you are right now, which still might be good, was what you intended to do. It was
well,
not.
What did you want them to do?
It's not what I wanted. This is where we're stuck on this argument. It is not what I wanted. It is clearly what they wanted, which was not to have this happen. And
this is what Zach Lowe said too on his podcast in terms of the assets that we're talking about here, because they still have assets when you think about a Thompson for 2 years, when you think about the trade exception that could be coming back, which we also debated about the other day. They canvassed the league apparently on Miles Turner's value as a secondary trade target for 3 years, $18 million a year, and teams didn't want him. No one around the league. The Pacers are begging teams right now to take Miles Turner, and no one wants him.
Yeah.
So what are you talking? Doug McDermott, useless as an asset. Miles Turner, next to useless as an asset. So are you really salvaging much there by getting those two guys?
Well, I'll ask you this. Can you drag his corpse along with you until his contract is up and then dump the expiring just to have the asset? Again, it's what it comes down to. It's whether or not you want to not have the salary on the books and completely let the asset walk. At this point, you're in mid-level exception land, and that's where they are, and they got Tristan Thompson, and it's a Band-Aid, and it's the best that they could do given the circumstances.
All right, Jimmy, jump in on that one.
Well, no, so I'm going to say a few things. One, clearly it looks like it was not plan A to have this situation for the Celtics. Last year, plan A didn't happen either. It was plan B.
But it worked.
When Al Horford walked, when Kyrie Irving walked, they ended up with Kemba Walker, and now here we are with Kemba Walker. They luckily were able to get Kemba Walker in the sign and trade with Charlotte. So they made the most out of a pretty shitty situation there, and Danny Ainge has actually done that a good amount over the last 10 years. A plan B has kind of worked out, whether it's, getting Isaiah Thomas and catching lightning in a bottle there, and he's, when you look at some of the mistakes they made in the NBA draft, he's been able to sort of keep them competitive by making some big, Marcus Morris. And the other thing I want to say is this: we're writing off this Pacers trade right now. Why am I blanking on his name? We were just talking about him.
Miles Turner.
Thank you, Miles Turner. Isn't Brad Stevens a guy who's been able to acquire some guys at lower value and make them into better players?
Right, he's 24.
Exactly. Why is the entire league giving up?
That's what I mean. Is like I would rather bring in players like that for Brad.
Right. I mean, what is Brad's use if it's not to take some of these young guys, put them into a good culture, get them under his wing.
Right. He's better at that than coaching stars.
Show them what they're good at or better at, and get them away from what they're not doing well. Get them with the whole Celtics franchise. Get him out of Indy, and maybe you culture change is good for a guy. Is that just out the window? Oh, the rest of the league doesn't want to trade for him, so the Celtics didn't want him. I don't know if it's that easy. Like John said, you bring a guy in, he can add. He's better than nothing. So maybe he's not your ideal.
It's not nothing though.
Player.
And again,
his roster spot is better than what.
So even if you don't,
you could make the case he's more valuable than Thomas. And like John said, he turns into an expiring contract the last year of his deal. Worst case scenario, he does still fill a need. Again, I haven't watched every single game of Miles Turner, but I know what he does. I know what he does okay, and I think that there's room for growth there. So you can't just tell me, Celtics weren't interested. They didn't want to do the deal.
Yeah, my point is,
hold on, real quick. More to the plan A factor. Take Turner out of it. The fact that the Celtics seem to be willing to go well past a point that any of us thought that they would go on a contract with Hayward means that they looked at their roster and they said, we need this, and couldn't get it done. And so that's twofold. Is one, for whatever reason, the 110 or wherever they were willing to go, which we would have considered to be a massive overpay for Hayward, and it was well within range of what he ended up getting, something they desperately wanted to do, couldn't make it happen. And then they were in a shit or get off the pot situation.
I'll give you guys
do the Pacers trade you don't love, or he walks. And again, it just comes back to this. We are debating whether or not we like Miles Turner instead of debating whether or not we like having something rather than nothing in the Hayward situation.
I still argue Thompson something, but I'll give you
that's the thing. Yeah, Bobby's saying it's not something for nothing. It's either Turner or Thompson.
I think you always knew a player like Thompson was possible because when we talked about early in the offseason, worst case scenarios for Hayward, he walks and you get the mid-level. And we looked through a bunch of guys and we said, I guess this guy. We mentioned Thompson. In every scenario, we viewed that as a consolation prize. I don't know why we're now looking at it as if it was equal to or better than.
There's two different mid-levels. If you're a taxpayer, you can offer $5 million. If you're a non-taxpayer, you can offer $10 million. And that $10 million is why you get Thompson. He wouldn't have taken $10 million for 2 years. They gave him $20 million for 2 years because you didn't get those players back. That's my point. It was either or in that situation. You can either take the money back from Indiana, still be a taxpayer team, and get maybe, I don't know, Aaron Baines.
What the Celtics wanted to do is what
it could have been. I mean, that's why you possibly could have walked away from the table. I'll give you guys this, though. Could you have made a bigger deal with Indiana? And we talked about this last week. Put in Romeo Langford, put in some other guys, and try to get TJ
That's what we
Warren
thought
back.
You had to do.
I think that's a good question now.
I'm fairly certain the Celtics would have done that, throwing in Romeo Langford and getting TJ Warren.
Yeah, so if you could get there and they chose not to, I think that's a fair criticism. If you couldn't get to Warren, and again, I don't like Oladipo that much either, but if you couldn't get to Oladipo either and you wanted him, like, it's Turner and McDermott, and you have the chance to sign Thompson instead. I walk away from that too if I'm in that spot. Again, when we talked about Thompson earlier this offseason, I didn't think they could actually get him. I thought the Lakers would scoop him up. I thought the Clippers would. Like, I thought he would be westbound easily. I'm still shocked they could get him. And maybe it was just about the money.
That actually concerns me. But anyway, the fact that they could get him makes you wonder whether other people know something we don't. But I think Thompson will be fine. I think he's going to be far short of a game changer. I think he's going to be okay. I don't think it's better than. I think Plan A was actually Hayward on an overpay. Versus if you look at your scenario, junk coming from Indiana, overpay for Hayward, where they are now.
Would we have liked that?
I would have ranked them Hayward 1, overpay for Indiana 2, where they are now 3. That's me.
So your number one would have been keeping him at 100.
I would on 100. If you could have convinced Hayward to do 4 and 100, I would have done that.
I think I would have done that too.
I think that was option one. The problem was Hayward clearly didn't want it. Said, but I'll do Indiana and take a hometown discount there. And then Danny stuck. Indiana thought they had leverage because Hayward clearly didn't want to play for Boston. Danny thought he had it because he thought there was no market out there with Indiana, with Miami and New York. Charlotte effed up the whole game. I don't know what I don't know is our doppelgangers in Indiana right now, are they yelling at each other like, we could have friggin' had Hayward and we blew it? I don't know. I don't know that Indiana was, yeah.
We don't know what the Pacers
were.
Now the report comes out they're offering 100, but what about like in a sign and trade situation?
The Pacers people I saw out there really wanted him, and they were ready to dump Turner for reasons I've mentioned, and they're probably pretty bummed this didn't come together.
I don't know what would have gotten it done then. If Oladipo was a concern and that was never going to be a straight up swap, you take him in a contract year. I don't know how that deal gets done otherwise.
I think you'd have to take it bigger. If you wanted Oladipo, suddenly Smart and Kemba get involved. If you want to do Warren,
no, that's way too much.
You're sending prospects. Well, it's because of the money there.
Yeah.
If you want to do Warren and Turner, you're sending a Langford, you're sending a Rob Williams, which I don't think any of us would have had huge problems with.
No.
But again, how much do you love TJ Warren?
You could have those guys and their children,
There's mixed reviews
their
on
firstborn
TJ Warren.
children.
I like him.
Yes.
I would have done that potential deal just because you need wing depth. We're back with Semi Ojeleye now. So you would have addressed center and the wing in that trade. I would not have done Oladipo.
I just want to say that our chat has devolved into one or two Raptors fans really agitating a bunch of Celtics fans. The Raptors fans are here for you, Bobby, and there's a little bit of a border.
Signing Aaron Baines up in Toronto.
There's a little bit of a border war going on here.
Celtics fans and Raptors fans are going to have to get along down in those comments.
At some point or another.
Raptors fans are here to stay, which I'm fine with. And we'll get into the Tampa Bay Raptors.
Right now, the Celtics... right now the Celtics are the Raptors. People just leave us,
Right.
They just leave.
I don't know.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap it because, again, we're going to go in circles here. But again, just a recap, at the start of the show, we did tell you guys about Kemba Walker. This is not a new injury. Some people in the chat were asking. It's the same knee injury that forced him, to be kind of a little maintenance situation when he was in the bubble, that flared up during the season a couple of times, and then again when he started resuming basketball activities before action in the bubble started. Required a little bit of maintenance. He was slow to get started. Brad Stevens was on a podcast today on the CLNS Media Network with Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman, and gave a little insight saying, not so sure Kemba's going to be ready. So that's one of the reasons we came out to talk about this developing situation. Definitely check out that interview either on our YouTube channel, which you're on right now. Many of you can see the whole video interview there. Subscribe as well, because you will get access to these live chats. When we do go live, you will get a notification. Check out that podcast as well, Ryan and Goodman podcast. They get great guests, super interesting conversation, basketball, college, and pro. Two of the best in the business, two of the best who've ever. But Bob Ryan, needs no introduction, and obviously Jeff knows everybody, super well connected here at all levels of basketball. So definitely check that out. And then the second thing was contract details came out. Celtics and Pacers offering Gordon Hayward a little bit over $100 million over 4 years. And the question, did the Celtics do everything they could do to maximize this situation? And the debate rages on. So I'll give you guys closing thoughts here before we go. And we thank our sponsor one last time.
Celtics fans, you are going to love Tristan Thompson, and John Zannis will be a believer by the end of the year as well.
I like Tristan Thompson.
You're going to love him.
Okay.
You guys know my thoughts on Thompson. Huge fan, big fan of the Kardashians too. So happy to welcome them to Boston. My closing thought is I am officially full-time Kemba watch now moving forward. I think Gordon Hayward talks. See you later. We barely knew you. We'll see you around. I'm concerned about the players that are on this team moving forward. So I'm turning my attention to Kemba Walker, and I want to see how his knee responds to being back on the court. And I'm hoping that having a regular, sort of rehab or whatever you want to call it, routine in Boston, in a great facility with great team doctors and the likes in Boston, that maybe it's not as bad as it sounded.
What I'm going to delude myself into believing is that this is going to be a dynamite draft class. So I'm putting all my eggs in the Naismith Pritchard basket to make contributions this year beyond what we've seen any rookies make in the last couple of years. That's one. Number two, the thing I'm concerned with is Kardashian influence on Jason Tatum. That freaking terrifies me.
Here's my question, guys.
That legitimately terrifies me. Mr. Soft-spoken. Mr. Soft-spoken lived with his mom up until last year. LA boy all of a sudden is like, whoa, I've got all this money and this is cool.
I'm
worried.
He couldn't get the hoop last year.
I'm worried about Tatum. I'm worried a little bit.
Yeah, he's got that NBA money now.
Yeah.
Guys, who you starting when Kemba's out? You got Smart, the wings, a center, Naismith, Grant, or Teague.
Did you really say Grant, like with a straight face?
Grant could be the 4 with that group.
All right, we're gonna let Bobby go here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that some other day.
All right.
No, anyway, thanks again for joining. This was a semi-emergency pod, but we wanted to sneak one in before the holiday. Bobby has to make all Thanksgiving dinner this year.
Cooking starts tonight, so I also got a lot of wine to get me through it. But you know what? I enjoy it. I'm gonna do it with a smile.
I got a lot of prep work tonight too. I got to make a bunch of pies tomorrow.
What kind?
Everybody likes pie.
One pumpkin, one blueberry. But we've got to make a few side dishes as well. So we've got the bird is being handled elsewhere, but we've got some work to do tomorrow. So this is the last night we can do this. Thank you everybody for joining. Happy Thanksgiving. What's up, Bobby?
No, that's it. That's it from me.
Oh, sorry.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you guys on the other side, maybe this weekend. If there's any news developing, trade exception, who knows? Maybe Bogdan somehow ends up here. I doubt it.
Drink, said Bogdan.
Later, guys.